Hello and welcome to the 9 News Business Buzz, where we take up what's happening in business, how it impacts you and our economy. I'm your host, 9 News business expert Ryan Frazier, and the CEO of Frazier Global. I'm joined by my fellow business expert, Ed Seelover of the Colorado Chamber of Commerce and the editor of the Sum and Substance. Ed, it's always great to have you back to talk business.
This is fun. Let's get wonky.
Let's go. Colorado homeowners are facing a crisis of affordability as insurance rates have soared, leading the nation in increases. A new state law aims to give residents more transparency and control, but the question remains is whether it will be enough to actually lower these crushing costs for many homeowners. Ed, let's break down this issue a little bit more.
Now, a Lending Tree study that came out this year showed that from 2019 to 2024, Colorado had the largest increase in homeowners insurance rates of anywhere in the country, 76.5% over a 5-year period. This was actually double the average rate nationally that we saw an increase. This is obviously significant.
You know, Ed, now beyond the sticker shock, nearly 77% rate hike impacting housing affordability for the average Coloradan, what's the deeper issue here you see?
So we're already a state that has a median home price of $590,000. That's one of the higher median home prices in the country. You add on to that, say $300 a month for insurance, and this is going to push even more people out of the ability to buy a home or to afford a home. And not only that, this is affecting our employers as well. Employers are reporting more and more to us at the Colorado Chamber of Commerce that they are having a hard time recruiting and retaining employees because they don't want to move to a place that has such high housing rates. In fact, it was the fourth biggest issue, housing affordability, that kept employers from growing in the state, according to a survey we at the Chamber did earlier this year.
You know, as a business owner myself, right, I look at laws and regulation, and you and I have had many discussions about the economic competitiveness of the state, regulations in the state, and while this new state law, HB 1182, I believe, aims to give homeowners more transparency and control, it doesn't really solve what I believe is the root problem. That is the escalating wildfire risks that are driving up costs. I mean, like, that seems to be a big issue that I'm not sure this law really addresses, but I know there's an effort to try to provide some relief to homeowners.
So what this law does is three things in general. One, it requires insurers to tell property owners what their wildfire risk score is. Secondly, it makes them explain how they can bring down that score in a very detailed way. And thirdly, it requires them to give them an appeal process if the homeowner says, no, I've done things, you should bring down my score a little bit more. Now, when we're talking about how to bring down the score, these aren't just broad suggestions. The draft rules show a 2.5-page box area that includes things for individuals like, have you built defensible space around your home? Have you put on a wildfire or hail-resistant roof? Even down to things like, have you put on non-combustible gutters or mesh coverings for your vents? Plus, it also lists some of the community-level things that can be done. Has your community built defensible space around its neighborhood? Does your fire department have a full-time staff? And even does your utility bury utility lines rather than leave them out? All of these things are supposed to let homeowners know what they can do. You're right, that's not going to cut down wildfires necessarily, but it's going to cut down the chances that wildfires are going to wipe out a neighborhood, say like the Marshall Fire did. And if that happens, if insurers can cut the amount of claims that they have to pay every year, that actually should help to bring down the cost of insurance or at least stop the 76.5% growth.
Let me jump in there, Ed, because you know, that's a great point you make. Obviously, this is an effort by the state of Colorado to do something about these soaring costs, and this new law does give homeowners more information that hopefully will help them further reduce their impacts of rising premiums due to these risks. From a chamber's perspective, though, is this enough to actually lower rates, or does it just help people understand the pain and some things they can do to mitigate it?
Well, I think it helps people to understand the things they can do to mitigate it. And one of the key things was insurance companies were okay with this. Where we at the Chamber believe you have to find that sweet spot is, what can you do in regulations that are not going to hurt the employers that are going to be hit by those regulations? Insurers, for example, lost a very significant tax break during the recent special session. That's going to hurt insurance companies. This won't. This will kind of open up and say, look, here's what we need you to do. The question is whether homeowners will be able to do that. Some homeowners will be able to afford it, some won't, and there's a bigger topic for conversation that the legislature also tried to have this year about, well, how do we do that? There was an idea of, let's put a fee on every homeowner's insurance policy, and that'll help everybody afford to get new roofs. That got killed because nobody wanted to raise the cost of homeowners insurance to help you bring down the cost of homeowners insurance. But I think we're going to see those conversations continue. How do we help people mitigate?
You know, and one of the important things, you and I were talking offline about this, right, is not everybody has the same level of wildfire risk. For instance, if you live in Central Park versus someone who lives in Boulder County. So the question would remain for our viewers and others, right? Why should I care, right? And you made some interesting points about the potential for hail.
Yeah. Wildfire is the big threat a lot of people see. But Colorado is one of the worst states in the country for hail damage as well. And these policies are going to have to get a checkup on what can you do to hail-proof your house as well. So while you may not be at risk of wildfire if you live a little further east in the metro area, you could learn from here how to hail-proof your house and bring down your risk scores with that as well. So this actually does really hit everybody.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I also think it's really key to point out is that this issue impacts us all as homeowners and as business owners. And I think it's important to understand, especially, why, right? As insurances companies have taken losses, right? In any business, if you're taking losses, you either have to cut your costs or you have to raise revenue through price increases. Now, some believe that insurance companies are raking in profits right now, so why shouldn't they just take the hit and not the homeowners?
Well, one interesting stat that people should know is that Colorado is the third least profitable state in the country for property insurance because of this high risk of wildfire and hail damage that leads to excessive claims. In fact, in 8 of the last 10 years, property insurers have lost money in the state of Colorado. So this isn't a matter of cutting their profits here. They're not profitable in the state of Colorado for most of the last decade at this point. They are raising costs because they can't afford to be offering the rates they have right now. This is going to be a win-win scenario. They would also like to cut down on the number of claims that people are submitting for wildfire and hail damage. That's going to help them bring down their costs, and it will help the people who are doing things to bring down those claims.
For me, as we begin to wrap this up, it really highlights also potentially how real the risk is that insurance companies could decide that parts of Colorado are simply uninsurable.
I mean, we're seeing that in Florida, California, and some other states as well. We don't want to see that here. This is a first step toward not letting that happen.
Well, we'll see how this plays out in the weeks ahead. Ed, we have to wrap it up. For folks who are viewing, the business is always buzzing in Colorado. Our goal is for you to stay informed, to be engaged, and to get ahead of the game. So be sure to stay tuned for more in-depth business discussions and news on the Business Buzz. And by the way, we'd like to hear what you think is buzzing in Colorado. So be sure to text us at 303-871-1491. 303-871-1491 for business topics and tips you'd like us to talk about that you think are important to Colorado and our economy. For 9 News Business Buzz, at Sea Lover, I'm Ryan Frazier. Lawrence Scafidi picks it up after the break. Until next time.